Let's call the Wednesday, March 18th, 2026 meeting of the Foster City Planning Commission to order. Mr. Trino, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bonte? Here. Mr. Duncan? Here. Mr. Kreisel? Here. Chair Cullen?
I'm here.
Mr. Stevens? Here. Ms. Friedlander?
Here.
Mr. Kravinsky? Here. Thank you, Nicole.
Great, thank you. Our next item is to adopt the agenda. Any changes recommended? If not, can I have a motion to adopt the agenda for tonight?
Madam Chair, I move to adopt the meeting agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, no speaker series tonight. Do we have any written correspondence this evening?
No, Chair, no written petitions.
What about any in-person speaker slips?
I've not received any.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to our action items tonight. The minutes from our March 4th meeting. Do we have a chance to review any edits? Mr. Duncan?
Yeah, I looked at it. I would move to adopt the minutes of the March 4 meeting as presented.
Is there a second? Mr.
Second.
Well, no.
I'm sorry. Mr. Kravinsky has.
That one?
I wanted to
Sorry.
make a comment. On the minutes, the part about under the Commissioner's report said I gave an update on the city's cable company franchise agreements. I just wanted to add, which was the point I was trying to make during that update, which is, and urged the city manager to ensure that all cable company requirements are met prior to extending franchise agreements, including cable maintenance and shifting of cable lines when new poles are installed.
Could you read that back one more time?
Yeah. So we could go ahead. And urged that the city manager urged the city manager to ensure that all cable company requirements are met prior to extending franchise agreements, including cable maintenance and shifting cable maintenance, I'm sorry, including cable maintenance, making it hard for you. And shifting of cable lines when new poles are installed. And period. And I think you can take out the agreements right before the edit, franchise update. Take out the word updates, cable company, and urged, it's probably a past tense.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kravinsky, and thank you for all your work on that issue. Mr. Duncan, did you want to move the minutes with that addition?
Yes, exactly that.
Oh.
I move to adopt the minutes of the meeting as updated by Mr. Kravinsky.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Stevens, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank
And one
you.
abstain.
Oh, abstention from Ms. Friedlander. Okay, that brings us to our work session. And we're here to tonight to discuss the 258 North Washington Street site plan. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Holland with the planning team. Tonight you're being asked to review a site plan application for 258 North Washington Street for the Park Washington Apartments. The applicant is proposing to add an addition to the existing historic home that's on this site, which includes a 3-story building containing 8 new apartments. The site is within a T1 zone and neighbors several B1 businesses along Park Washington Court. Staff has received this application on February 23rd and completed their first review on March 11th, which generated the letter and comments that you have in your materials, which Jack has shown right now. Several issues have been identified, including informational and technical items related to sewer and stormwater management, requiring additional clarification and review. The plans as they are currently submitted also have several inconsistencies with the city's comprehensive plan and downtown small area plan, especially how it relates to how new development interacts with historic buildings. Last week, the Architectural Advisory Board met with the applicant to discuss the project. This generated a negative recommendation with several suggestions on how the applicant may be able to improve the project's interactions with the existing home. Draft minutes from that meeting are included also within your materials. The applicant is working within our 40-day review schedule, which may allow an additional resubmission and 1-week staff review ahead of the April 3rd deadline in which the designated agent is to take action on the project. That timeline is shown within at the bottom of this letter to the applicant. One other thing that I just wanted to mention really quickly, kind of a bit of an update since we posted a lot of the staff comments. There have been two kind of adjustments that I think are relevant to your interests to the staff comments that we've been working through with the applicant since we gave it to them. One is on the amount of ADUs at the new development. We have suggested in our comments that they would need 2 ADUs. We are new to the new T1 zoning code, and so we miscalculated, and they only need the one that they are proposing, and that one is at 80% AMI. So that comment has been struck from the staff comments. Also, the other one is on parking comments. The zoning made a miscalculation as well on their required parking for the site. T1 needs 1 parking space for each unit. Since there's going to be 9 total units at this development, they would need 9 parking spots. I believe that staff had said something like 21. I think that they were using the wrong table at the time. So we've corrected that with the applicant, and they are all good to go on required parking. So that's it for me. We do have some members, I think, of the applicant team here to make a brief presentation. I think there's a few people online as well. So thank you.
That'd be great. Thank you so much. We'd welcome the applicant to make their presentation now.
How are you? Mike's on.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the Planning Commission. I'm Charles Warren. I'm a principal of Taze Warren Architects. We're the architectural team, and we're representing the applicant here today, Ken Fennerty, who I think he's in Norway on a boat, so he apologizes for not being here. I want to thank Mr. Hollern and the staff as well for the introduction of this project and to help us navigate their process. Their collaboration has been very important to us, and we appreciate it. So I can, are you moving the slides for me? Great, thanks. So we can go to the first slide, please. Can we scroll down a little bit more? Thank you. If we could just get the full page on that, it's pretty close. Thank you. I know all of you are familiar with the site. It's just like right over there. But I'll start with just some context here. So this is located along North Washington Street. It's a couple doors over from the State Theater. It is on the edge of the downtown Falls Church POA. And as Mr. Hollern mentioned, is in the new T1 transition zone. The existing house there is one of the 4 historic properties in that T-zone. The lot is around 9,400 square feet, which is about 0.216 acres, which plays into the density that we're allowed on the site. The historic farmhouse sits on the south, you can move to the next slide, please. The historic farmhouse sits on the southwestern portion of the site. with a significant open space to the northwest. And you can see that in the lower right photo. It's essentially underutilized space. It's an empty lot there, empty green space. There is a significant grade change across the side. It's about 8 feet of vertical elevation change from the sidewalk along North Washington down to the parking area at the rear. Next slide, please. So it's a pretty oddly shaped lot. It's trapezoidal in shape, and with the required setbacks that you can see in the dashed blue lines, it just introduces some difficult geometries that we're navigating with the new building. The new building will sit in that area between two historic properties, 258, which is on our site, and 282 North Washington, which is sits to the northwest. These are both gabled farmhouse-style structures, with 282 being a little bit more of a Victorian style with more of the kind of gingerbread that you might see on that. There is an asphalt parking area on the southwestern portion of the lot, and that is shared with the property to the southeast. There is a shared property line that runs right through the middle of a shared access easement to that parking. So that's right along that property line. Next slide, please. So I just go over some just overall project goals here. As Mr. Hollern mentioned, the project is proposing 8 new additional units in addition to the existing single-family residence of the farmhouse. The project would include a single ADU, which would meet that 10% threshold requirement, and that is being offered at 80% AMI. The project does propose a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. And while this is a small development in terms of unit count, it provides a diverse mix of residences. The average unit size is around 1,300 square feet. And this is desired by our client to offer flexible units for families of different sizes and the potential for aging in place here. The gross square footage of the building is around 9,700 square feet in the new building, or the addition, and around 2,900 in the existing house. We are proposing 9 parking spaces, which is the 1-to-1 ratio that was mentioned. And there are also a couple of tandem spaces located underneath the building, and those are really just unit amenity or owner amenity spaces. We are setting back from the existing house. You can see it. We're kind of zigzagging around the building there, and we're only touching it with a small terrace that meets at grade and below. And part of that was just to try to introduce some breathing room between the two buildings and the two structures. We are also proposing the new building entry on the far east corner to really just add more separation between the existing house and the new entry. Next slide, please. This is a rendering concept view looking towards the southwest. Here you can see the entry of the new building on the left here. Again, we're trying to just create some separation between that porch entry of the existing farmhouse and the new structure to the left. We are introducing a covered porch on the new building and lining that with a wood material to soften that entry and make it a little more humane as you come into the building. On the porch on the right side, at one point we had some of the earlier schemes that maybe you've seen and we presented to Harb earlier had proposed removing the porch that's on the left side of the historic structure, but we've brought that back. And although it wasn't original to the building, we think it helps retain some of the architectural character of the farmhouse and helps to put a little more distance between those two buildings. From a massing standpoint, really tried to keep it pretty simple in terms of forms and really just looking at simple materials and more of a modern aesthetic to it. It is a 3-story building. It's roughly 38 feet tall. Next slide, please. And here you can see that porch element that we're retaining on between the two buildings, that we brought that back to help just kind of retain some of that character and to put a little more breathing space between the two buildings. And this iteration, we are really looking at treating the new building almost like a modern expression, and really just trying to be distinct from the two buildings. And I know we've gotten some feedback from the Architectural Advisory Board, and we haven't had a chance to react to that yet. We just got that info last week. We are working on that, and we plan to have some of those iterations within I think we have a week or so to turn them around, so we're working on that now. And the next slide, please. And just from a material standpoint, we were looking at a composite panel system, which is a very durable product. It's called Trespa, and that's the beige color you saw on the renderings, and then the wood version of that at the entry to soften that entry point to the building, and then fiber cement panel for the remainder of the material. Next slide, please. I just wanted to touch base on an earlier design that we had. So this was a version of the building that we had shown to HARB back in 2024 in July. And some of the feedback we had gotten from that presentation, it sounded like, and maybe we misinterpreted it, that feedback was they didn't really enjoy the gabled forms, and they thought they were competing with the existing structures a little too much, which is why we had moved away from some of these gable forms and introduced more of a sort of modern aesthetic. But I just wanted to put that in here for some context. So we have been studying the site for some time, and again, looking for feedback from the commission tonight along these lines. But we're actively working on some design iterations here, and we hope to have that within the next week or so. But with that, I will conclude my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. I'm sure we'll have some questions. Who would like to begin? And yeah, Jack, if you could just leave that one up, I think that would be great. We can reference the presentation. Any takers?
Where's Danny?
Danny, do you want to start?
So I listened in to the Architectural Advisory Board conversation last week, and I think one of the big points of emphasis from them was the difference in the newish building, the new apartment styling versus the historic nature of the original, the building that's currently in place. And I was wondering, I know you said you got the feedback last week, you're working on that, but like, what are you thinking or what is the thought process around, is it possible to marry that? Are you thinking of marrying that? Are you still leaning towards more of a distinct style?
I think what we're, excuse me, I think what we're trying to do is really start to, I think that it's probably too different right now, and I think what we would try to do is introduce a little more material that's more compatible, like maybe a brick or something, and then a little bit more siding, or like a finer grain, maybe not siding, but something that's a little more fine grain like siding is. And then I think one of the main things that we're really looking at is breaking the massing down to really read like a 2-story with a 1-story piece on top of it versus, a 3-story read. I think is from a massing standpoint, I think would help bring that more compatible with the two neighboring structures. I think introducing a gable form is complicated to get the full, usable space on that 3rd floor. It gets complicated and it gets a little fussy. But that's sort of my instinct on a design that might start talking to the two buildings on either side of it.
Okay. And then where I don't think I quite understood where the parking would be, or where the entrance and exit of the parking. Is it on on Washington Street?
No, it's off of the parking area in the rear. So I think Park Court, I think it is, leads back there, and there's a parking area in the back, and then it's underneath the building in the back.
Is that also where you're thinking trash, other things would go?
Yeah, there is a trash room back there, and it would be wheeled out. We have a private service that will come pick it up, so that we cans wheeled out to that access alley on the back.
So basically my question was could a truck get around and into that area, or you're saying it would get on, whenever it was picked up, it would get wheeled out to the access alleyway?
Yes, on the back, yeah. It's, we're looking to see if we can get a truck to turn in there. That's one of the comments we got from the staff. And we're looking at the turning radius there, but there's that access there that a small trash truck can certainly get back there. It's wide enough for that.
Okay. I may have some more questions. I think the real question is like, can you, like, what would we do with the feedback from the AAB and that concept? And I'd love to see more, just what direction that goes.
Okay,
But I'll turn it over to other commissioners to
thank you.
ask some questions.
Go ahead, Tim. Yes, please.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you for bringing the project. I think that there are a lot of positive aspects that I see to it in terms of bringing more residential housing to the city. And this kind of area has kind of been, I don't want to say neglected, but there's not a whole lot that's been going on in this area. And so I think something like this can also help to revitalize a little bit. I looked at your company's website, and I was pleased to see that you featured a net zero design. And also, you're focusing on single stair for the 3 to 6 story residential units. So those are both things that I appreciate. So it's good to see those in your website.
I'm glad somebody reads it.
The original design that you submitted to the HARB had like a distance between the front of the building and the curb. It was about, I don't know, 10, 15 feet there. Does that still apply to this addition as well?
Yes, it's the same setback from the
Okay.
street. Yeah.
I think that helps because it kind of sets the, what is it, the Holtwell House? I don't know if that's the accurate way to describe to the historic house. It sets that apart because it's closer to the street. So that's good if that would be retained under this approach. I'm not an architect, but just from my perspective, I think the original design that you presented to HARB has some interesting aspects to it in terms of how it fits in Falls Church. Real modern design, even though it's my personal preference, there's a lot of people in the city that don't necessarily find that attractive. So I think some of the gable work that you had on that original design kind of seems to speak nicely to, like the pediment that's on top of the porch there on the historic house. So, that's my thought, but I figured, no better than the people that are spending the money to build it to decide which piece is going to be most attractive to the marketplace. So I could probably, be comfortable with either. I think staff pointed out there was a need for the 3 bike parking, and I was just wondering where those would go.
Right, I think there's 3 short-term and 3 long-term spaces. We're looking at potentially putting the 3 long-term or short-term spaces to the left of that entry. There's a bit of a pad area. I think we could put the 3 short-term ones there, which I think would make the most sense from an access standpoint.
So that visitors could use those?
Correct,
Yeah.
yeah, and it'd be coming in the front door. The other area, we do have a space in the garage area below that is dedicated for bike parking.
I see. Would the garages be pre-wired for an EV charger if somebody wanted to put one in?
Probably, yeah, we're looking to do those.
We've I think, had pretty good success with the townhomes that have gone into the city recently. They've been pre-wired for EV. Some were pre-wired for solar. I realize you're going to have a green roof, so that's good too. But yeah, that'd be great. And I assume you're probably just, as far as the energy efficiency goes, you're just going to build to the state code, or are you perhaps going to go a little bit above that?
It'll probably be a little bit above that. We almost always do a little more than that. I think that, we're not currently entertaining any certifications like LEED or anything like that on the property, but.
Right, but from an energy efficiency standpoint, that's okay,
Yeah, I think we will be a little bit better than code is what our typical designs are.
Yeah, I think it'd be great if you could feature those things. I think there are people that are attracted to that in the city, and so, you know, if you have those features, I think it could be of some assistance.
We will put in the infrastructure for solar. We always run conduit now to do that, so that it has the option and easier to fit in later.
Good. Okay, thank you. Let's see, parking we talked about. I guess this is more for staff, but on some of the townhouses that have gone on recently, we've had a step-back requirement, so I assume that's not necessary by code for these units?
I'm not aware of it, but maybe that's. Okay.
As far as I understand, the zoning staff didn't mention anything about that.
Okay, I assume they would look at that, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. ADUs, we took care of that. I was a little confused on that whole discussion, so glad that got clarified.
Same.
Okay, I think that's all I had.
Great, thank you, Mr. Stevens. Mr. Kravinsky?
Thanks. Actually, I just want to, I have a couple questions for staff rather than the submitter, which I appreciate the presentation. So, one, this is a T-zone by right development, which is not requesting, and the submitter is not requesting any waivers, exceptions to setbacks, to height.
They are not.
So, and my understanding was, I don't remember there being ADU requirements on Park, but there are on Washington for development?
Yes. For the T1 zones, there are, I don't know, maybe Jack can speak more to those. I don't know.
Did we have ADU requirements on the other developments along Park?
No, so from what I understand, the applicant's accessing the by right, what was called the by right bonus density option, which, so if you don't, the typical density maximum is 34 units per acre, which are basically what all the recent townhouse developments have been built to. There's an option in the T1 zone to go to 40 units per acre, and that triggers an affordability requirement of 10% of all of the units at 34 units per acre. And so so this is the first T-zone applicant that's come in at 40 units per acre with those affordability requirements.
Got it. Oh, that's very helpful.
he's the
And
expert.
then, with regard to the, any authorities for the Historic Architectural Review Board, do they have any authorities over the new building, or are there authorities only for modifications to the existing building?
No, so I think that's where some of maybe the applicant's kind of confusion also came, and amongst staff too, with what HARB approved and what they looked at and what they approved. So HARB mainly approved the existence of this new development with the existing historic home, the fact that it can be there and that they approve of this development happening. Their recommendation was so that nothing happens to this historic home. And you know, there was some discussion about the front porch there not being touched and all these types of items. As long HARB approved that this application can move forward so long as they do not affect the historic home. They had comments on the new development and what was being proposed, back in 2024. But ultimately, the AAB is the one who is overseeing something like the architecture for the new development.
Of the new development?
Yes.
So the AAB, what is their authority to modify, or they're just recommendations, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I mean, they're an advisory board, so,
They're an advisory
they follow along with whatever, the comprehensive plan or the small area plan has to say about a development like this. They make suggestions. In fact, our chair I'm the liaison to the AAB. Our chair made a good comparison with some buildings in Leesburg that also had new development interacting with old historic homes. And so we worked through that with the applicant team and hopefully gave them some good ideas. But ultimately, they're advisory, and that's where their authority is.
So everything that the Planning Commission, the Historical Review Board, and the AAB are recommendations to the designated agent, but the designated agent, this is a by right development, so the designated agent can only pass these suggestions on to the developer, but there's no, as long as it's within code, it is by right development. Is that right?
That's true.
Okay.
But I've suggested to this applicant and many other applicants in the past that I think, it goes a long way to try to meet these groups in the middle and try to take their suggestions to heart, because I think it goes a long way with, the public reception to.
Absolutely. And I mean, there are citizens boards that have been living in the city for a long time, so completely understand that they have some great suggestions and ideas. I just wanted to understand the legality of what the
Sure.
requirements were. So, and that's the only questions that I had.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Kravinsky. Mr. Krasner.
I'll go ahead. And I appreciate Mr. Kravinsky's just walking through that analysis. And again, this is, I think, our third or fourth T-zone project that we're seeing. And again, for anyone, who remembers the debate that we had about the sort of pros and cons of by right development versus not, and, and sort of, right. So, but exactly right. And staff's answer is exactly correct, that they're just recommendations, and a developer could choose to completely ignore them and build whatever they want, as long as it meets the requirements in the ordinance. So, so that's why there's always a risk with the by right and the T-zones. And, I think we're seeing, it hasn't all been a disaster, but I think we're seeing some of the negative that can occur when we don't address certain things at that time, like the relationship to historic houses and maybe treating those lots, differently. We talked about that when we debated the T-zone, ordinance. And, I think this lot in particular was one that everyone was aware of, was likely to be affected by this, and now it is. Unfortunately, because the structure itself is remaining, but obviously, with historic buildings, the context can be just as important as the structure itself sometimes. Not always, depending on what happened and why it's historic, but in any event. So that's more commentary, but I appreciate Mr. Kavinsky calling that out, because that's exactly right. We can provide a lot of recommendations, and we can tell the applicant a lot of our opinion, but ultimately, they'll do what they want to do. But with that said, I have a few technical kind of comments and questions. I won't really hit on the architecture. I mean, I have my personal opinions about it. There's a lot of people who are focusing on that. It sounds like the applicant is hearing that, and I'm hopeful that they will hear that and try to design something that both, I understand, they're trying to achieve something as far as, number of units and square footage, but also, I hope they also understand the significance of what they're doing. And in some ways, this is, everything in some ways you could say is precedent setting, but because this is the first T-zone project on a lot with an historic structure, how it's designed and, I think is important. It'll maybe set the tone for things that might come after it. So I'm hopeful that they'll continue to work with that, voluntarily, because it is voluntarily, to try to design something that is the best fit to not, destroy the context of the existing structure. But getting back to some more boring stuff, the parking. So I wonder if we could pull up the floor plan, maybe to show the parking space. I just want to be sure. I know there's just staff could confirm there are no waivers that are being requested as far as dimensions, columns, intruding into required parking area. I saw something in the comments, and it might have been from the fire folks, and it was talking about that the vehicle that was used was a 2009 Ford Escape. I don't know where that came from. That's a pretty small vehicle. I don't think there are too many 2009 Ford Escapes driving around. What was the context of that comment? Was that related to fire equipment apparatus?
No, we have our transportation engineers that look at,
Yeah.
mainly it's meant for trucks to turn around.
Right.
And so the applicant provided like a typical, car. as opposed to the
that the most
purpose of
typical-
having that sheet is to
Yeah.
make sure trucks can turn around, not,
But we're not saying the only cars that can fit in the parking spaces are 2009 Ford Escapes, are we?
but we know it can. We know
Well,
it can.
we know those can, but I mean, those are relatively small vehicles. I'm
Right.
saying, we're not saying their size, so that's the largest vehicle that can fit in the parking spaces. I just wanted to take a look at that. I mean, it almost looked like there were some tandem spots. I just wanted to make sure that I'm counting correctly the 9, or you're putting, I'm sorry, 11 spaces, I think, that are shown on the sheet as provided, 11 spaces. I think 9's the minimum, right? Is that right, Steph? And they're providing 11. If you could just walk me through that. It almost looked like there were tandem spots, but maybe I'm miscounting. I just couldn't quite tell the way they were labeled.
Sure. The way it is a little funky. The 9 spaces are, well, 8 of them are aligned along the back there there's a, is there a pointer or anything I can? So there's 8 along the back. There's one on the left side there that's
Oh, so 8 are like covered, because I see like in the elevation, there's like a roll-down door.
Yeah, those are all covered spaces, and then there is a van space, a handicap van space that's, if you see the 2 hatch lines, you see the little hatched areas in the building.
Right. Now, one of the required spaces is generated by the historic house, right? So like one of the
One of
required.
them, yeah, and
And what-
one of them is accessible from.
Outside.
Oh, so one's
outside.
outside. Okay, maybe that's what was
That's the
confusing
one
me.
that probably you missed. That one's hard to see.
So one's outside, the other 9
The other
are.
9 are inside, and then there's 2 tandems on the left side of the building that are also under the building.
But we can't, just so staff could confirm, tandem spaces, you can't, I mean, you can provide tandem spaces, but those don't count towards parking space
Yeah,
requirement.
we're not counting those as our zoning.
That's not in the
compliance
11s.
spaces. Those are just kind of
It's
additional.
an amenity.
So how do we get to the 11? So we got 8 underneath the building, we got 1 outside the building, 9.
Plus 2 for
Plus the
tandem.
2 tandem,
Plus-
but they only
And the
need
2
the 9,
tandems that are.
All right.
because there's 9.
Maybe there should be a
units.
note on the sheet that just makes it clear that you're only actually provide, under our ordinance, I mean, I'm not saying how many cars could cram in anywhere on the site, but you're only actually providing 9 spaces, the way our
Correct.
ordinance defines parking spaces. It
Correct.
might be more accurate to either put an asterisk or just indicate that, 11, but parentheses 2 tandem, just to make that very clear that we're only providing, you're meeting the minimum requirement, you're not exceeding it, just so it's clear. And the elevation shows like overhead doors. Are you intending to actually provide overhead doors
Yeah,
underneath
that's
the
the
building?
intent right now, is to just have them roll up for.
And so like residents would have a remote to, or
Exactly.
they could program their car to open those doors to get in and out. And the reason, on this site, I mean, I know not everyone on the commission likes to talk about parking, but again, on this site, it's very conceivable people will need to have a car. And if they can't fit or the spaces don't work, you're going to wind up putting a burden on the adjacent commercial owners that I'm sure will try to put up all kinds of signage saying, don't park here, your guests, your visitors, don't park. Like, for example, those spaces that are right across essentially what's today a common parking area. I know it's owned by a different entity. I'm sure they'll be signing it up, crazy to say, don't park here. That's going to be an issue. I mean, unlike other, even in our other T-zone projects where there was a lot of on-street parking, there's really not here. I mean, obviously you can't park on Washington. I guess you can park, there's some other streets nearby potentially, but I'm just thinking of that. I'm thinking of like access for, Amazon deliveries, other things. I'm just foreseeing, that there'll be some burden placed on the adjacent commercial owners, in this area because it's going to fall on them to kind of police that. But again, it is what it is. All right. Yeah, I mean, I think those are my main comments. I mean, otherwise, right, there are no other site plan waivers being requested, correct, staff?
There is not, no.
Yeah. So yeah, that was my main question. I'll leave the architecture to the architects. I hope you continue to improve that. But yeah, again, just another kind of, cautionary example of how letting things be purely by right implies that we got the ordinance totally correct, and we probably didn't. So, hopefully we can learn from this and staff can continue to think about this, and maybe there are things we want to tweak, as we get more experience with the T-zone sites. So.
Thank you, Mr. Krasner. Mr. Duncan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too will leave the architecture to the architects. I think it is worthwhile, as Mr. Krasner says, as the staff reviews this project and others to come, I hope, to be mindful of the business of deliveries and housekeeping staff who may have their own cars and need access to the property for brief periods of time, maybe as little as a few minutes to make a delivery and as long as a couple or 3 hours for a housekeeping situation. I know there's nothing specific to that in the instructions that we typically lay out to a prospective developer, but it is a reality that, needs to be taken into account. And if there is some mention or consideration of overflow parking on nearby streets, just think we ought to be aware of that. Living on West Street as I do, now we're beginning to see what happens when new development goes in and how it affects the residential neighborhood approximate to it. And things are working out by and large okay, I think, but it is something that we ought to take into consideration. I would like to focus my comments on the use of the units as it relates to affordable dwellings. First, before I start in on that, let me say what Mr. Stevens said. We're glad to have this proposal. The T1 discussions were intense and of long duration, and a lot of concerns were voiced that gargantuan projects might emanate from creation of the T1 or the T-zone apparatus. I think this is a good example of the sort of more modest development that we anticipated, hoped for, and hopefully we'll see more of. Affordable dwelling leads me to ask the question of the 8 units, which one of the bedroom makeups is going to be the affordable dwelling unit? Has that been decided?
Right now, it's a one-bedroom unit.
Yeah, I would... obviously you have to make this thing pencil out to get it built. I would put a plug in for considering the affordable dwelling unit to be one of the 2 bedrooms at least. 3-bedroom would be ideal. We have a real shortage for affordable housing for families. Everybody knows that. We're spending 0.21 acres of precious Falls Church City land on this development, and by and large, almost completely, I think this is a good submission. But if we are going to make some real progress on affordable dwellings for families, this is an opportunity, and you only get one bullet to shoot here on this one. It's not like we can have one that's a 1-bedroom and one that's a 2-bedroom or anything even like that. So that would be my request to the applicant and my suggestion to staff as the designated agent considers his decision on this at the end of the game. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Ms. Friedlander, do you want to?
Yes, thanks.
Thanks.
So I wanted to say that thank you for bringing this forward. It's great to see some additional units coming into the city as well as an affordable dwelling unit. I did want to express some concern just over, or actually a question really, for staff with regards to the setback. I know that the setbacks, the applicant stated that it falls within the 10-foot setback, this new addition.
I think it's 10 feet on the sides. I think it's 20 feet on, I don't remember exactly, but I think it's 20 feet on the front and then 20 on the back.
So if it's 20 feet on the front, the civil drawings indicate that this is 7'1" away from the property line on the front. So
I think
And-
that the front setback is, I'm sorry to interrupt, I think the front setback is from the center line of the street, or the curb, I can't remember. It's not, I don't think it's the
Is it
property
from the
line.
curb?
And I think it was 15 feet. Is that correct? From the T-zone ordinance? I thought it was 15 feet from the face of the curb.
I'd have to look into that. I don't know that off the top of my head, I'm sorry.
Well, the zoning notes state that the front yard setback required is 20 feet, and the proposed is .2 feet, and meets the property as a substantial non-conforming lot, I guess, or the historic structure. But I would think that the addition would need to meet the actual requirement of what the T-zone requires in the setback.
Yeah, I'll correct my statement. It's 20 feet by right, and I think 15 feet by special use permit is the front setback.
Okay.
And so what are we actually at? I'm just curious. This is 20-foot one from the face of curb? Okay. And that's to the actual structure, not the porch? Okay.
I think that's right. I think we had 20 feet to that, there's like a little jog there.
Yeah, I think that's what that dimension string that goes out to the curb line up by the,
The arrow?
on the right, toward the top. It goes out to the curb.
Yep.
From the green area that's shown on the roof, like the roof garden.
20.
Like that corner of the building right there is the closest, it looks like. Okay, I misunderstood. I thought it was to the property line. So, my other questions really had to do with, I'm glad that somebody's looking at the parking. I did have some concern too in the garage floor plan. There are no columns in that space from front to back. And I think a column would present a little bit of a navigation difficulty and spatially. So right now, there's a span that's like over 40 feet. So I would really question how those parking spaces are laid out because the columns aren't in there. I was surprised. I was like, I don't think you have a over 40-foot span down there in the basement. And I don't know what sheet it's on. But the presentation is a little bit different than the sheets that we got. And so I'm a little bit concerned, like what the intent later that somebody goes back, if there's discrepancies through the documents, like what document are we actually talking about, what sets the intent of what's been approved. And so and we saw it on some previous projects where we thought, well, the applicant really didn't mean it, or, there was there was an extra layer on, and then we go and we see after the applicant moves in and that there's actually curb cuts still there, and because it was on the original document and it never got cleaned up, then it became part of the intent of what was improved. And so I want to be clear about what the designated agent is approving in the intent of the documents, just to be aware of that moving forward.
Can I ask where you saw the discrepancy? Was it all within the plan sheets?
It's within the plan sheets. Well, and it's hard because what the presentation that we saw was slightly different than what I have in my hands. So it's,
Okay.
I will say that the historical structure is shown totally, like when you look at the elevation of the proposed, the historic structure on the packet that we have doesn't have shutters. It shows the gables at the front portico larger than what it looks like in the photographs of what's existing. And so I was concerned that maybe are we actually touching the historic structure and removing those things to kind of make it look more modern? Is that part of the rendering? to make it not appear as if it's so different. So that's kind of
I understand.
one of the things, but I saw that was picked up in the presentation, shows the shutters and shows that portico more downgraded in scale. And so it's those kinds of discrepancies that I get concerned over what was the
Yeah.
true intention of what we were approving at the time. The devil's in the details a lot of the
Sure.
time.
I think as staff, we just kind of read it as being, the historic home is technically outside the limited disturbance for this project, so we didn't really, put too much emphasis on how that house, but I can understand how that interpretation would be that.
But like later, somebody looks at the drawings and says, oh, look, see it, we showed it with no
Sure,
shutters. Right?
sure, I understand, yeah.
And it was approved. So that's kind of where I'm headed,
Okay.
right? And just to kind of get back to like the historic nature of that structure, my initial gut on this was that the scale of the proposed addition is a little out of scale. And the materials are very different. I think in some ways it's good to kind of have that dynamic tension and just kind of show how different something is from its historical context. But at the same time, I think it's important to bring those proportions across into the new proposed addition in order for it to have some kind of dialogue back and forth. And you can do it through the proportions of the windows and datum lines coming across into the new proposed thing. And that's what I saw kind of happening in the previous application that was in 2024, is I did see those datum lines coming through and being expressed in the detailing of the addition structure. And the other thing that was successful about it was I thought that one was breaking up that space a little bit more and allowing a little bit of breathing room in between. Right now, what we're seeing is I really feel like it's crowding the historical structure and almost wants to like stomp on it, right? And so that's kind of what I was struggling with, right? Like when you see it, it's really hard to explain that proportionality and how you can really develop that to have them have a little bit more dialogue, even if the materials are so different. And the materials, I would actually like to see something more complementary, right? Complementary doesn't mean the same though, right? And I think that's what you're showing here is you're trying to say juxtapose more modern materials with more traditional. So I think, I would defer back to the AAB on their feedback with regards to that. But I would like to, I think this particular view makes it seem very chunky, rather than more broken up and delicate and kind of talking to the historic structure a little bit more. Let's see. I did also have some questions about how deliveries happen, how the mail gets delivered, packages, Amazon, Uber Eats, all of that stuff. Does that happen on North Washington? Because that's where the entrance is and that's where the address is? Because that seems problematic in people stopping. Because on West Westmoreland, I've never driven by the development where One Page Books is. I've never driven by when somebody is not double or triple parked there. And you come around that corner off of Washington onto Westmoreland, West Westmoreland, and it's a total cluster because there's both buildings are getting deliveries. Yeah. And I don't think we want that on North Washington. It's a main artery.
Something like, because there's, Park Washington is the little street that comes off of Washington. Seems like it'd be very easy to just pull in and make those deliveries from that location. That may be a comment that we want to make.
I think so, but I think, your average Uber Eats guy is not looking at they're looking at what's most convenient for them, right then, because they're trying to, they get paid by however many deliveries they make, right? So that would be my that would be my concern. I'm glad that somebody talked about the trash and the trash trucks going in and out of that. I didn't actually see how that was going to work. So I think that's something that the designated agent can really pour through. I did actually review all the comments. I was very appreciative of our Department of Public Works in that they are identifying the issues with the sanitary capacity post-development to make sure, as well as the storm, because I think the storm, there was some discrepancy too with manholes and some confusion. So I'm glad that they're on that, and I trust that those comments will be addressed appropriately for the authority that has jurisdiction over that as well, and that meets code. And then I did like the green rooftop gardens. I thought that was great. But I was a little bit concerned over the, how that looms more over the historic structure. One last question. The fire marshal has deemed this to be one structure. Is that because of the need for like a fire partition between two structures? And that's why we can be so close, is if he deems it all as one? Or they?
I know that was something that he identified pretty early on,
Yeah.
even in the pre-application process. And I think that the applicant had worked directly with him
Okay.
to address that.
Uh-huh.
This has always been called an addition to the existing house, even though it kind of makes it look a lot smaller and dwarfs it a bit.
Yeah.
But it is a bit of, it's an addition, yeah. So,
It's an addition.
Can I ask, are they connected in any way? Are they physically connected?
Just by-
they are underground, correct?
Yeah, they're connected just at grade, basically below grade.
Because there's a terrace
Yeah, at the
on
terrace
one of the
there.
units?
Yep.
Okay.
And in addition to a historic structure, does not, it is not applicable to changing of the historic structure. So approval's required to change the historic structure. Is that?
This is ultimately why it went to HARB, was because HARB needed to look at this, this proposal and give their blessing to move on, to move forward to application. And their recommendation is simply just so that this can move forward so long as it does not do anything substantial to the historic home. Make substantial changes.
Got it, thanks.
Is that why the porch is back on?
Yes.
Because, okay, all right. And then one final thing about, sorry. The landscape plan was missing from the packet. There was a tree protection plan that had a couple of new species that were going to be planted. It was kind of unclear what trees were remaining. I did find a little sheet, a little table, but I want to make sure that the city arborist looks at this, because I don't, especially with the root balls of the ones that, the trees that are scheduled to remain, would they survive during construction, right? And also post-development conditions with the structure being so close to the center of that root ball. So I wanted to make sure, because there was no comment by the arborist in the list, and I actually would like to see that.
Yeah, he does review all of these site plans. He's part of our mailing list. And he commented no comment. He is requiring a new landscape bond, but other than that.
I would respectfully request that we look at that the city arborists look at the species that are identified as new, also in the placement of those, if they will survive, because that affects the tree canopy percentage coverage post-development. and, you know, which trees we're saving, are they actually worth saving? If they're in fair or poor condition, things like that, that I thought were a little bit, it was hard to understand that plan. There was just a lot of information on it overlapping. So I think it would be really great to get some clarity on that. And that is all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Friedlander. I appreciate your comments. So I want to align myself with my colleagues who are expressing their appreciation for this project and the new units we're building here in this location. I think because these units have windows on, many of them on multiple sides, like they're going to be very livable, much more pleasant, I think, for their occupants than some of the other new construction that we have, where you're really limited in terms of the way you can bring light and air into the unit. So like, I'm really excited about that. I am mindful of the guidance from our downtown small area plan that calls for every effort to be made to match the scale and incorporate architectural features of existing historic structures into new adjacent development, as well as provide transition buffers between properties. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to take a look at like breaking down the massing, maybe introducing a brick, or maybe even like a painted wood material. I don't know, something that kind of speaks to the original historic home. I was also curious, and I'm, unlike Ms. Friedlander, I'm not an architect, but the sort of the gray block, is there a reason that that needs to be kind of on the right side of the building, very close to the historic home, rather than on the left? I mean, if we have that, we're trying to have that square footage, is that, because I agree with my colleagues who said it feels like it's crowding the historic home, and I wonder if that piece of the new construction in particular feels quite close and like it's competing. Does it need to be that close, or could it be shifted over to the left?
We can look at that. We may be able to bend it a little bit.
Yeah, or even like step backs, I don't know, maybe on the upper stories, just something to give that house a little more breathing room. And I know it's a balance because you want them to speak to each other and feel like they are connected, but I think we also don't want the new construction to overwhelm the existing historic home, which should remain the focal point. I know that's hard with the height differential, so anything you can do to improve that would be appreciated. I also was curious, like, I'm glad Ms. Friedlander asked about the landscaping plan. I mean, because I think you could really use landscaping to aid in the transition between the two structures, and so I'd really love to see some creative ideas on that front. I wanted to ask about the elevator, like the penthouses, the elevator. They were on the original plan, but I don't see them here. It looks nice and clean. Are they there? Like, are there, because it's a green roof that people can access, right? Do the elevators travel all the way up?
No, the elevator just travels to the third floor, and then there's...
And then there's stairs? Okay, great.
So
So that's why it looks much nice. The other plan had those like penthouses on the top, and
It's like a spiral?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we have a couple spirals and then one just kind of straight stair, but it's set back kind of in the middle of the building.
Great. Oh, go ahead.
How far away? How far away is the stair tower from the front of the parapet?
I don't remember offhand, but they are set back a good, 15 feet or so.
Okay. It's interesting. Thank you.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
But we'll be mindful of that. I think I'm hearing what you're saying.
And then I guess I'm curious about the plans for the historic home. I mean, ideally, this project would be kind of done at the same time, right? Like, is there a restoration plan in mind for the historic home? Will we eventually be touching it? Like, it looks like it's in okay shape, but it probably needs some work. You're going to renovate it into two units, is that correct, or just the one?
Right now, it's going to stay a single family.
I'm sorry.
The plan right now is for it to stay a single family house.
Single family house. Okay, so there are no units contemplated in the historic home.
Not at this point.
Okay.
But it does need some love.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in
That
my
porch definitely needs
The
some
porch,
work.
right. Yeah, I guess it just feels a little half-baked on that front in that there's nothing really contemplated. And I understand why you're doing that, because if you touch the historic home, then the project kind of needs to go through like some more extensive review with HARB. But I don't know. I would personally want to know what the vision is for how that historic home would be restored in the future in a way that speaks to the new development or the new construction. Let's see, did I have anything else? I think my colleagues asked about all of these other items on my list, so thank you. All right, any other final questions, comments? And this isn't a public hearing, but I think we do want to like use this opportunity to hear from the public. So is it okay if I open this to any public comment? Is there anybody here who would like to speak on this item? Can you, yeah, sorry, can you come up to the microphone?
I don't know, and I'm just curious. What's happens in the historic house now? Like, does the family live
Oh,
there?
yeah, sorry, could you identify yourself for the record?
Sorry, yeah.
Your name and address, please.
James Lawrence, 111 East Broad Street, apartment 482.
Great,
Falls
thank
Church,
you.
22046.
Nope, that's okay. We got your zip.
Yeah, I'm just curious. What is the historic home for? Like, what can people tour it? What does it do now, and what will be done there after?
Right now, it's just a private home. There's no tours. I believe it's a rental house at the moment, and I think that's the intent.
I saw them installing an HVAC today.
Okay.
So the intent is to keep it as a single-family house. It's a private house.
To be rented out or? Okay, got it.
That is
Great.
my understanding. It may be sold at some point, but I think that's the intent as of now that I understand it.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. Do you have a question, follow on, Mr. Krasner?
But selling it, I mean, you're not subdividing, right? You're not subdividing this lot, correct?
No, it's a condo development.
Oh, it's going to
So,
be turned into a condo, so you'd be able to sell the,
The historic home as a condo.
as a condo, but there'd be an underlying condo association that would own the land. Okay, I just wasn't clear by what okay. These are all going to be condo units?
That's my understanding.
For sale condo units, okay.
Yeah, everything is going to be condoized
Okay.
and for sale.
All right, great. Okay, no other public comment, I think.
Just one other
ahead.
comment. You know, I walk by there all the time on the way to the Whole Foods from where I live. And especially in the summertime and when the vegetation gets cranked up, it's really tough to pass on that sidewalk. So I'm actually kind of happy to see some development occurring here. I think that will make passage for pedestrians along this area a lot better after everything is done.
Yeah, good point. Mr.
Just
Duncan?
one quick thing, since we've opened this up, can of worms up. So one-bedroom condo, one bath and a half. What is the price range that we're talking about here? I mean, this is something that came up on the Park Avenue units, and it may seem early to talk about it, but the community will be interested, and probably we ought to set some sort of level of expectation.
Yeah, I actually don't know the answer to that question. I would have to defer to my client who's running the numbers on it.
Uh-huh.
I mean, their market rate, so I don't know what that is here exactly, because there's not a lot of comps for a project like this. and I
That's
think
right.
He's projecting out what that might be, but I could get that answer. And
Yeah, I was going to say, to the designated agent, again, that's the piece of information that in this project and all others going forward, it's good to have some idea from the very start so that people's expectations are realistic. I think some folks think that things can sell for a little cheaper than they do here, and when they go out into the market and get their assessment, they realize, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think it's been difficult for our client to actually dial that in because there's just not a lot of comps out there. This is a new project type and
Yeah.
new kind of in the area, and I think we've talked to him about it, and he's like, he's mentioned that he's sort of trying to work the numbers and using some projections on it to try to figure that out.
I mean, it's roughly in some ways comparable to Winter Hill, Cherry Hill unit, the two-level Cherry Hill units that are two or three bedrooms and 1.5 baths and sell for, $650, $700 to start.
I would imagine it's in that ballpark. I don't know offhand.
Okay,
though.
well, that's,
They are nice units. I think there's some sizable units that are pretty big. The
Yeah.
2 and 3 bedroom units are nice size units.
Yeah, they look very livable.
okay, thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Duncan. All right, any final thoughts? Okay, I think what our deliverable here is a set of recommendations to the designated agent, and I think we've agreed that we'd like to be able to capture those live and vote on those recommendations rather than doing it after the fact. So what concrete requests do we have? Sorry, Jack, can you make that a little bigger? Okay, following recommendations. Jack, I think we can trust you to capture the topics that were discussed after the fact. Is that okay? So what specific recommendations did each of you have that you'd like to include here? I heard a few from you, Ms. Friedlander. The city arborist looking at the tree species.
City arborist looking at the tree species, the viability of the trees post-development and during construction. I'll wait for you to catch
Historic
up.
house to remain in the kind of the pre-construction state.
I'm sorry.
You were concerned about the historic house. and
The renderings of the
Yeah.
historic house, or?
Yes.
I was trying to come up with some words with that it remain in the pre-construction status. I don't know if that captures what you have in mind. In other words, they don't change it.
Yeah, like the discrepancies in the documents
Can we finish?
are not an indication of any approval of acceptance of revisions to the historic structure.
I think the plans are pretty clear that it's not being touched, but yeah.
But
we
the
can
elevations
include that.
don't match what's
there today.
there,
Yeah.
and the elevations and the renderings that we saw tonight also don't match. And so I think when there's a discrepancy, and we've seen it happen on other projects, what ends up getting built lands in some of those discrepancies.
Yeah.
That what was approved or discussed was the opposite, because everybody said, oh, well, that one was a mistake, or, there's always a reason.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to make sure that we're more deliberate about what
With
we're
the-
actually,
Yeah.
what the intent is of what's being approved. And it's hard because it's the designated agent now has to go through and look through the discrepancies and make sure which document they're actually identifying as the intended approval.
Okay. I think we're probably expecting an additional submittal, right, after the, you're planning to incorporate the AAB comments, so there will be an additional submittal. But as far as the historic home, maybe the applicant should reconcile any discrepancies between the way the historic home is presented in the materials and the current state of the historic home. The historic home should remain untouched.
That's fine.
Could you repeat that, sir?
So the applicant should reconcile any discrepancies in the way the historic home is depicted in the materials.
Okay.
Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Ms. Friedlander?
I can live with
Okay.
And scrap the rest?
I think we could scrap the rest. Yeah.
I can live with that. Another one was the scale and proportions. Consider the scale and proportions to be more respectful of
Of
the
the historic
historic
home.
structure. I don't know if respectful is the right word, but I don't have one.
Better match,
Reverent.
or, yeah, reference.
Sorry?
The scale and proportions of the proposed addition should be respectful of the existing historic structure.
Do you want to add something like consistent with the small area plan?
Yeah, consistent with the
And
downtown.
we could actually
small
say
area
section
plan.
6-2, I think is the right one. Design compatibility.
Thank you.
Something like that. Does that capture?
Guidance, I think,
Intent.
rather than recommendations,
Guidance.
Jack, but,
Yeah.
yeah. Mr. Krasner, did you have an addition?
The only tangible thing I had was just noting that they're only providing 9 parking spaces plus 2 tandem. I mean, depending on how you want to say that, you could, if you're going to keep it at 11, you should have an asterisk or some notation that indicates that 2 of those are tandem. So that per the ordinance, you're only providing 9.
Indicate, maybe it's even just indicate which parking spaces are tandem spaces.
Yeah, well, just the table right now shows 11. They have a table on sheet, but that shows, they have a zoning table and they show 11 spaces provided, but technically they're only providing 9. So you can, if you want to mention the other ones, you just need to indicate those are not defined spaces under the ordinance.
Can I go
That's a
off on
long-winded
that?
way of saying it, but however you want to note that, I think you understand.
I think Ms. Friedlander has a suggestion on that one.
I wanted to glob onto that, to get an actual layout with the structure and the layout of those parking spaces, just to make sure that it's, that it works.
Okay, so we have the 2 tandem parking spaces should be indicated in the materials and a parking, what plan? No,
Dimensions,
Parking
parking
dimension.
plan.
And parking-
With structure, with the structure considerations or coordinated with the structure.
Okay, and a parking dimension plan should be provided to confirm the parking is what?
I think you can say, and a dimensioned parking plan that's coordinated with the building structural system. I think that leaves it open.
Okay, and a parking dimension plan that is coordinated with the,
A dimensioned parking plan.
sorry, Jack, can you help
back
us with
up.
these edits? Just, I know you're doing it backwards. Next time, we're going to have you put your keyboard on your head, Jack.
Yeah.
And,
Parking plan that is coordinated with the architectural and structural systems.
sounds very official, thank you.
I know, thank you.
Okay, and then you can strike the rest,
Yeah.
coordinated with the architectural and structural systems.
Architectural-
I see you, Mr. Stevens.
What was that
System,
last bit?
and
Sys-
structural systems.
The architectural and
Oh.
structural systems.
I was going to suggest that we put a comment in that we encourage the developer to pre-wire
Yes.
the garages for EV chargers and aim to achieve energy efficiency above code. Yeah.
Can I ask, is this an electric building or is it gas?
Right now, it's all electric.
It's all electric, okay.
That's good.
Could you revisit that language for me, Mr.
Encourage
Stevens?
the applicant to pre-wire the garage
For EV
for
chargers.
EV chargers. And then, sorry, Jack, just real quick, in that first one, the city arbor, I think it should consider the future viability of tree species on the site. Or should confirm the future viability. Is that your concern? Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Kravinsky, did you have one?
You got to finish this.
Oh, good.
Encourage the applicant to pre-wire the garage for electric vehicle chargers and to achieve above code energy efficiency.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
Thank you.
Mr. Kravinsky.
And I think this is different from the comment about scale and proportion, but do we want to make a comment that we encourage the applicant to revisit the original gabled design from 2024
I don't have strong feelings about that. Do other folks want to make that recommendation?
I think there was some discussion that the square design was not as compatible with the historic structure. I don't know. Does anybody?
I like I like the juxtaposition personally, my personal opinion, of the modern with the historic structure. I think incorporating the materials to sort of speak to that historic structure would help in that regard. So I prefer this design, personally, this design to the
Okay.
gabled one, I think.
I think we kind of start addressing that here with the scale and proportions of the proposed addition should be respectful of the existing historic structure and be compatible with the downtown small area plan guidance. That doesn't speak to the materials.
Yeah,
but I
maybe
think
we
the
could add a-
scale kind
well,
of-
maybe
do
we
you
can-
wanna talk a little bit more, like, change that to?
Well, I thought there was some discussion here tonight about the gabled roof would be more compatible, but you make a good point. Maybe what you're going for is the juxtaposition of the square and the gabled design. I'm not an architect, but I defer to the architect.
Yeah, it's hard, I think it's a proportion, and it's bringing the datums across to break up that mass, and it's hard to dictate that it should be a gable or it should be, I think it's one of those things, as you develop it, you're gonna know it when you see it. But I wouldn't want to tell you to do X, Y, Z, and then I get exactly X, Y, Z the way you see it, but it's not the way I saw it, right? So I want you to kind of develop that.
Okay.
That's
Could we,
where I'm coming
could we
from.
add materials into this recommendation, though? Could we say the scale, proportion, and materials of the proposed addition should be respectful of the existing historic structure? Because I feel like we did talk about materials. Is that okay? So it would be scale, comma, proportions, and materials.
Well, it's design too, though, right?
And, yeah.
Sorry, what was that, Mr. Stevens?
Did she have design in mind as well as materials?
Well, that might
The
be what I
design.
was trying to get about as a
So do you want to say the design, comma,
scale, design, proportions, and
comma,
materials.
proportions and materials? So in front of scale, put the word design, comma, space. Does
And
that make sense?
That gives the applicant the flexibility not to say X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z.
Okay.
We want X, Y, and Z.
Thank you. Very general, but yeah. I feel a lot of room. Okay.
Is that right there, the design, scale,
The
proportion?
design, scale, proportions, and materials
got
of
it.
the proposed addition.
Yep, yep.
Okay. I'm gonna turn this way. Anybody over here have anything to add to the list of things our designated agent should consider?
Should go.
Mr.
you go
Polinsky?
first.
Oh, Mr. Duncan.
So this is my return to the ask the applicant to designate one of the multi-bedroom units as affordable. I'll give you a pass on telling us how much any of the units are going to cost if you'll give me that first one. Thank you. And I do think it would be, if the documents don't show it now, it would be appropriate to ask for
Multi-bedroom units.
clarity on, just multi-bedroom. So he mentioned there might be 3 bedrooms, so that may be, it could be a 2-bedroom or 3, as long as we don't cheap out and just do the 1-bedroom is my objective. And, okay, you got that, Jack. The other thing is to make sure the materials show with clarity where the service delivery location is for all the Ubers of the world. We ask for that now reliably on any special exception building, and I think that's appropriate to get in the habit of just asking every developer to think about that when they start out, not as an afterthought. Thanks.
Mr. Polinsky?
One of the things that was mentioned up here, especially by Ms. Friedlander, which I think is really important to call out here, is how in the review of this or with the applicant, we can figure out how to indicate to either Ubers or deliveries or others what the location within the facility is to go to. ideally, we'd set the address as the back of the building or something like that. That may not be actually possible, but some way that during this process, we can figure out how to avoid the Northwest Moreland, West Street, Broad Street situation we've got with double or triple parking and deliveries happening, especially with like Uber-type deliveries. So I think adding that there is a way to be, that deliveries, ride shares, and others are handled off the street. Whether that's via direction, via signage, via address being set, whatever that is. But that, I don't think that's going to solve the people park there to go visit their friends problem, but will at least fix some of the more easily identifiable problems.
So you named deliveries, rideshare, and what else?
Any temporary, I would call it temporary stopping activities.
Okay.
But anything that's not going to solve somebody's parking to go visit a friend there scenario. That does solve the short-term, less than 5-minute parking scenario.
Temporary idling or, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I think that's right.
All right, Mr. Krasner, anything else from you?
No, I think it's all captured.
Okay. Do we want to ask for a landscaping plan?
Yes.
Yeah, could we, so can we say applicant should provide a landscaping plan that depicts how the how the landscaping will support the transition between the existing historic home and the new development? Okay.
Sorry. Jared, could you finish that for me again? Like how the landscaping will support the transition between existing
Oh,
buildings?
sorry, how the landscaping will support the transition between the existing historic home and the new construction addition or whatever, however we're, and the new development, sure. And it's between the existing historic home. Okay, it's a long list of recommendations. Anything anybody disagrees with, or?
I think it's between the existing,
Yes.
just
Oh,
change
yeah,
the existing
sorry.
and the,
Thank you. Very good at this, Jack.
We've got our own AI guy.
Okay. And then, do we all trust Jack to add the list of topics at the top here? The planning commission discussed several topics, including, I think you could reference all the things in this list, Jack, or do we want to add those now? Laundry list?
Last time I took care of it and circulated it around, I was
Okay.
taking notes as the discussion was happening, and
Okay.
it is
Well, I
recorded,
think we
so-
do want to vote on it, though, tonight, so I guess if we need to say this is our recommendation, is that right?
That's right, yeah, so
Yeah.
you're voting on the memo, which includes the recommendations as
Okay.
characterized.
And we can just stipulate that we trust you to add the topics after the fact? Okay.
Correct.
Okay, any other final thoughts on this? If not, is there a motion to approve the recommendations?
I move to approve the recommendations as described above.
I will second.
Okay, and then I think we need a roll call vote.
Okay. Mr. Polinsky?
Yes.
Mr. Duncan?
Yes?
Mr. Krasner?
Yes.
Mr. Stevens?
yes.
Ms. Friedlander?
Yes.
Mr. Kravinsky?
Yes.
Chair Comat?
Yes.
Thank you, the motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you very much
Thank
for coming
you.
out tonight. Thank you. All right, we may be running a little behind, but good discussion. We are on to our next work session item, which is the urban design master plan scoping.
I can set this up briefly as we get ready. Part of what the planning staff has been doing is really taking off with a lot of the various items we all discussed a couple weeks, months ago, for this year's and next year's work program. And while there were a lot of different items, we were trying to kind of balance our portfolio with some shorter-term projects and also make progress on the long-term projects, which we know are going to carry us over into 2027. As that happens, one of the items that involves a range of topics, some streetscape, some urban design, some green standards, a lot of different elements that I think frequently come up as we review site plans and special exceptions, posed a very interesting question about if we are to take that work on and try to conclude it in this calendar year, what should that scope look like? And before we bring that conversation to the council, both Kurt and Cameron wanted to really start a conversation with some of the boards and commissions about if we had a refined scope of work and we could agree on that scope of work, is that something we should still try to pursue this year? Or should we kind of wait until maybe a larger scope could present itself? And it kind of highlights a balancing act of staff resources, other council priorities that need to be addressed, and just kind of the breadth of work that would be involved depending on what we want to take on. So I'm going to let these guys jump into what the options are, and we're kind of just collecting feedback over the next couple of weeks before we kind of decide which way to go on this.
Great, thank you. All right, who's kicking us off?
Thanks, Matt. So in kind of a quick summary, this is an effort to create a new urban design master plan by consolidating the two existing guiding documents into one and using the opportunity to introduce a few new relevant concepts. Kurt and I are going around to different boards and commissions to introduce this topic and to receive feedback for initial scoping. Planning Commission is the first we've met with so far, so I don't have the clicker. Oh, it's green. Thanks. So in regards to how does this effort align with City Council goals? For good governance, staff is being proactive in updating the comp plan guidance and eliminating confusion with competing documents. Indirectly, this plan ties into housing and economic development. There's a strong correlation between good design of first floor of buildings, streetscapes, store frontages, and where people want to live, where they choose to work, go out and spend their money, eat, shop. The plan advocates for the most fundamental of transportation, walking, and improving pedestrian experience along our streets. And sustainability more than ever is becoming an increasing priority for the city and an aspect missing from both previous documents. So some of the new concepts we'll introduce later address sustainability. So here are the two documents I'm referring to. On the left, we have the design guidelines. This was outsourced to a contractor by the city in 2001. It is also the document tied to Chapter 3 of the Comprehensive Plan, Community Character and Design. And in these strategies and goals, it is repeatedly referred to kind of carry out some of those strategies. Pros, it goes in depth into great generalized best practices, site design, mass, scaling, complexity to form, streetscape. The cons is it's way too lengthy, 113 pages, and it's also a little too prescriptive sometimes with designs of buildings and spaces. And on the right is what we have, the current document in use, which is the 2017 Streetscape Standards. In 2025, there was a minor amendment about sidewalk materials. Pros, this is a much more concise document, kind of nuts and bolts, and focuses on utilities, measurements, and materials. It's also well made for the view of developers and reviewing city staff. And this is the document that kind of is currently in use when staff is looking at site plans. Cons, it lacks much of the overarching urban design goals and guidance from the 2001 standards. So, next, please. So the issue is there's a need for clarity. The 2017 standards supplanted the 2001 guidelines. However, much of the 2001 guidelines is missing from the current plan. And that's significant because currently the comprehensive plan is referencing a document that is no longer in use practically. So our solution is to combine and consolidate these two documents into one document. that aligns with Chapter 3 of the comp plan while strategically updating and introducing a limited number of new topics. Next. So this kind of reiterate, our goal is to give clear guidance to developers who come to the city to build, city staff who are reviewing these site plans, elected officials who are voting on these projects, and the residents who are trying to follow along with consistent messaging and guidance. Next. So this is kind of a quick overview. I'll go column by column of, on the left here we have, these are some ideas of new concepts we're looking to introduce into this plan. A lot of them, like I said before, are sustainability related, tree canopy, biophilic design, green roofs, dark skies, renewable energy. There's a few kind of larger urban design topics, such as block size and street types. We also had a concept for a kind of like a tear out one-pager checklist for developers and reviewing staff to look at to give some clarity on what they should be looking at within the plan. The next column we have, these are old concepts which currently exist in our plans, but maybe need to be revised or expanded upon. And then for the bulk of what we have is old concepts which we're not going to try to change and simply carry over into the new plan while we consolidate. And as we go through the public process, the idea is that as we meet with boards and commissions, we kind of have a discussion about, are the new concepts we're not thinking of to add to this plan, or are there old concepts which should be looked at or revised beyond what we're showing, but to leave as much as we can the same, because it is good guidance. It just is, a lot of it is in an older document that is no longer referenced, and it's kind of confusing to have sources of information in two different places. Next. So as I said before, this is the first group we're meeting with for this initial outreach and scoping. We plan to go to these other boards and commissions, and eventually, if we go to City Council to get initiating resolution, we will be back and have a public engagement strategy, which PC would be invited to for a public charrette and some open houses and things like that. But that's all I have for my presentation. Happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you. Mr. Polinsky, did you want to start?
I don't want to start.
Oh.
I'm happy to.
Oh, did you start last time? Sorry, picking on you tonight. You just lean forward. Okay, Mr. Stevens is ready to
Did
go.
Mr. Lawrence did you have some comments to make as well? Or?
Or are you just
No,
here for
I'm
questions?
Just on Team Cameron tonight.
I see.
Help
Tag
with the
team.
questions.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a short enough presentation tonight where Cameron just kind of took us through the whole thing.
We're flipping coins and seeing who presents. Got it.
All right, great. Could you go back to the slide that has the new existing?
Yeah, I had a question here, too.
That
Yeah.
one's helpful. I think that's the guts of it, right?
Yeah, I had a question here about overall small area plans and how do small area plans fit into the concept of this document? Like when it looks at like developer info and guidelines on building and things like that, like how does that fit into this?
It certainly does fit, and we would like to incorporate some of what's in the small area plans into this document, because the last two plans have had design guidance which has kind of lapsed our current comprehensive plan guidance. So we'd like to introduce some of those topics into this project. In terms of hierarchy, the comp plan comp plan and master plans that are connected to the comp plan sit a little higher in terms of, I guess you'd say, like negotiation power than small area plans when talking to developers. But it's certainly something we want to have consistency throughout, to have these matching.
Yeah, and I know it's posted publicly, like, sorry. I know it's posted publicly and it's on the website when I found it before. But a question, like, in terms of how it's communicated to developers or communicated to anybody making renovations or doing that work, and I know we're talking about the new version of this, but it's not specifically a new version of this question. But when does it get given to someone who's interested in doing something, renovating, new construction, something like that?
For, I know for a lot of developments, I mean, currently right now, it's not in an email package that gets sent out to a developer, but oftentimes during the first round of reviews, it's heavily suggested that they go through our comprehensive plan or small area plans to look at relevant documents that impact that area. But what's in the comprehensive plan, you know, these are kind of advisory guidance that we would like to enforce, but it's a little different than city code. So I'm sure the developers are probably more familiar with the ordinances than our comprehensive plans and small area plans, but we try to make that as public as possible.
Okay. And then from the, like, new concepts, are those new concepts or are they just newly organized in the way that we're presenting it?
New as in they are not in either of those two previous documents.
Okay, so these are new. And then how are they, I guess the question is, like, you said you're going to come back to, or will be invited to the conversation of those things. Like, how are we sourcing or creating these new concepts?
That's why we're here tonight. We're
Oh,
supposed to give them.
Oh,
Yeah,
we're giving them feedback.
we're
Oh,
giving
I'm
them-
sorry. I thought you were coming to us with suggestions. There we go. All right.
I mean, these are their suggestions, the new
these are
concepts,
initial.
but they want feedback on it and they want our ideas for anything else that should
Well, it's
be
more of a
included.
question of, like, block size. Like, is that a question of you're going to come up with a block size suggestion, and or are we going to suggest what we think block size should be? Like, that's more of my question of the items that are in green. What's the order of operations?
It would be, I could say simultaneously, what could be omitted from this list that if no one cares about block size, then we won't talk about block size. If we consistently get a certain topic repeated while we meet with different boards and commissions, then perhaps that's a topic that needs to get put on this list. So feedback, either of relevance to something or something we haven't thought of yet.
So the idea would be that we would discuss, we say things in green are good, we think those are right, or we suggest removing or adding whatever, and then there would be work after this meeting, plus you would talk to all the boards and commissions. There would be work after these conversations to then fill out what tree canopy should be, or block size, or whatever.
Correct.
Thank you. That was the order of operations I wasn't getting. That's it for me.
All right, thanks. Anybody else? Ms. Friedlander, go ahead.
So I have a question. So the intent is to kind of marry all of these together into one document, all three of these categories, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So, like, right now, for example, if you're a developer, you've got to read through those two plans. It's like 140 pages, comprehensive plan, small area plan. We really want to be able to hand you one kind of tear-out sheet that says, okay, let me go through this checklist and make sure I've got everything that the city's looking for. So, something that's new and tied directly, you know, to the comp plan that is very direct for developers.
It seems like a beast of a challenge, actually. but I'm excited to see your product, your work product on this. I do have a question about what the street types. What do you mean, like what level of detail are you kind of thinking about in terms of that? Is it like your main corridor versus your pedestrian thoroughfare, Great Street versus your residential? Like, what does that mean?
I think street types is in reference to, right now, we have, you know, the typical kind of street section of missing things like, you know, commercial alleyways, shared streets. There's a diversity of kind of creativeness that could happen in some of these newer developments that maybe hasn't been asked for enough by staff, or maybe just they don't believe that we'll go for it because it's a new concept and they want to stick with kind of what's known to work. So especially as we get, I think another big part of this is with block size and site layout too, of updating. In the previous plans, it talks about site layout as a project. In the past, you know, in 2001, we were getting projects which are maybe a building that's like 1/8 of a total city block. But now, in the last 10 years, we've been getting projects which are the whole city block. So how do you kind of effectively, when it's one building taking up a block, how can we help create and carve out secondary types of streets, pedestrian ways, bicycle ways, things also for service vehicles. So kind of expanding on and reacting to newer types of design in the city.
Okay, all right. And then, so block size also kind of talks about massing, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
like, for example, the West Falls project, which, the development, which, created new blocks. And luckily, the developers, know what they're doing and, or well-informed and created walkable size blocks. But also, we have nothing in our comp plan or other types of documents that specify what is a walkable block size. Yeah.
We got lucky, is what you're saying. Okay, thank you.
And just to add to that, I think the other common theme that shows up here, I mean, we're using the term urban design, maybe that evolves as the process goes on, but I think biophilic design is also pretty consistent throughout all the green categories and even the ones in the middle. And as, both Kurt and Cameron were saying, we rather much have this live in one document. We'd rather elevate it to something that is not just adopted by the council, but actually has some teeth. Calling it a master plan really helps with that. It allows us to show up with not just visuals, but expectations to those initial conversations with developers that really get us to a better pedestrian environment, perhaps learning from this first wave of projects that we've just finished getting through, and what do we expect the next wave to look like. And that really impacts what happens between the building and the street. So those are probably the most critical zones. There may be other aspects of this, but highlighting that theme and kind of giving everybody a perspective of what might be in the scope and what we're not touching because it's probably still working, it's still effective, and kind of carrying it forward is helping set expectations of this might actually get done in a number of months as opposed to becoming a 2-year process because every single item you see on the screen has to be revisited or developed from scratch.
No, I can appreciate that, especially because we're kind of at the whim right now of whoever's setting precedent with the largest project, right? And I think we've gotten lucky on some and unlucky on others, so I'm really appreciative of this effort, so thank you.
Mr. Stevens?
Yeah, it seems like a worthwhile effort to combine these two. I'm just curious whether there have been any thoughts of including something that touches on a form-based code in this as a way to maybe avoid getting too prescriptive on, as this document does in some cases, because it's really, things change over time. And if you keep it at the form-based code level, it seems like that we might have more success. Is that a thought that has occurred to staff?
That's something that I've looked at for other jurisdictions. How much, some of the form-based code is very extensive, and so part of it is trying to see how much, part of the reason we've also scaled it back to this much is not only is a lot of the things that are on the right are still good, solid text, but it's also in terms of staff resources of how much we can do in this time period. So it depends on how aggressive and ambitious I want to get with it, but that is something that has crossed my mind.
Could be form-based light for the little city.
Yeah.
Yeah, it occurred to me as I was going through the downtown small area plan for the previous item, 258, that there was an awful lot that was put in that small area plan that really was design guidelines. So even though you may not try to tackle that in this round, because it would be a fairly large effort, but trying to pull out of those small area plans things that could go into this, one document, that strikes me as being, a good idea. One specific on the new concepts where it says renewable energy, if you could add right after that energy efficiency. So you'd have renewable energy, energy efficiency, and then EV charging. That really relates back to our energy plans, and so I think it really helps if there's some calling out of those issues in a document like this.
Noted.
And I think that's all I had.
Thank you. Anyone down this way? Mr. Krasner?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I don't have that much. I mean, I think I think our problem now is that it's confusing. We do have, this topic is addressed in a number of ways, as was alluded to. We have the small area plans and these older documents. I mean, I think most people today think of urban design mostly as the streetscape, guidance that we have. So, having it in one place is good. I think, right, you'll have to do a lot of work, I think, to make sure that it's clear how this is going to be used when it's done. As far as how it will work in, with these other documents that are out there. But yeah, there's certainly things that we probably, hadn't tackled before. I mean, like Red Street hierarchy, other things. But I mean, the other thing too, it's like, we kind of know, I think, people mention block size. And we only have a few places in the city where that might come into play, maybe Gordon Road, but it's still important. I mean, for sure, we should continue to look at that. I think that's going to be the hard thing. We've done it in dribs and drabs because we've had we've had these older citywide documents, and then, we switched to a small area plan type of planning kind of framework, and we've kind of been successful with that, but now we're realizing we got these other things out there that, and it's not clear how they should be used. So this is another example of it. It's definitely a good effort to try to pull this stuff together and update it so it's consistent. Even our streetscape stuff, right? I mean, our streetscape talks about the paver sidewalks, and we're trying to get away from that. So maybe that's a way to, so you just have to be clear to the extent that this is going to either supersede, complement those other documents. That'll be actually, it's not an exciting part of this, but that's a key part to the implementation of it, is making sure that, there's some either probably some section at the end that explains how this is going to be used and how it should be used in relationship to those other documents. Because I think that'll, just to avoid confusion. But otherwise, I mean, you have kind of the typical topics that, we would want to see in a set of urban design guidelines. But yeah, it's just, we like everything else in the city, we have like a lot of good things that have been done over time, and then it's just how they all work together.
Thank you. Mr. Duncan?
Commendable effort. It's something that it would have been nice to have had in hand when we began the development boom, 15, 20 years ago, because we have, sort of had to make it up as we go along. Some of the developers have been very good. Others have needed to be dragged along, and, in the end, we have what we have today, which is by and large pretty good, but as Ms. Friedlander said, can always be improved in some other places. Two thoughts. One, please, dear God, make it short. I'm trying to look at this through the eyes of the developer who's going to assign somebody to read what it is Falls Church thinks of itself. And, be very simple. Tree canopy, we're for it, and don't give me 15 paragraphs on it, just we're for it, etc., for many of the items that are on here. Two, the only thing, having said you should be short, the only thing that I don't see here that I do feel as a person who lives here and walks around here and spends a lot of time here now that I'm retired, maybe it's captured a little bit under signs and wayfinding, but trying to bring the heritage angle into everything that we do, whether it's, the civil rights walk next to the Tenor Hill building, the signage that has been put up over the years for various historic landmarks and buildings and places. And it's kind of a hodgepodge now, and it would be, there's a plaque on the Founders 2 building about the history of sort of the evolution of Falls Church, the suburb rail. I mean, I don't remember it ever being discussed when we approved the building, and it's really an interesting side lot. At any rate, for a developer to come in with something that brings out the story of the city in whatever new development is being done would be a useful thing to add in to give development a little uniqueness and a little Falls Church soul. That's about, I think, the sum of what I would say. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Did you go?
I didn't go, but sounds like a worthwhile effort, and I actually would defer to the staff in terms of the hours involved, if you have the hours to do that, and whether it is how this prioritizes with all the other projects. It seems like it could be a fairly significant time suck, but it also sounds like it could be a pretty worthwhile effort. That's my only comment.
I'll let you know you're ready to answer. Right now, in terms of staffing, it is just Kurt and I. If there's public meetings that go on, there may be some staff pulled in to help out with some public engagement. But currently, we anticipate being able to work on this ourselves, in addition to other tasks we have.
Yeah, and I think part of what's happening is once the scope is finalized, after we have a few additional conversations with various boards and commissions, we are still kind of deliberating on what is the best way to bring the right folks into the space, to have multiple conversations, to give everybody enough, I think, bandwidth and space to think through what the right solutions here are, where it still makes sense to maybe leave certain items in place. So even with the limited scope, and a lot of other colleagues working on the elements already shown on the work program, this will be a fairly heavy lift, likely taking us well into late 2026, if things kind of proceed the way they might.
Okay, I think I might be the last one. I also think this is a very great, cool effort. Excited about it. I have a few questions on, well, first, is there anything that you're leaving behind? When I looked at the chapter, the sort of, in the design guidelines, the table of contents is pretty specific. It includes guidelines for commercial and office buildings, guidelines for new residential buildings, guidelines for rehabilitation of historic buildings. In addition to the sort of site elements or streetscape elements, some of which you've captured here. So I guess I'm curious, are we leaving those more specific guidelines for those kinds of construction behind? Or are they carried over into some way in this plan? Or do we not know that yet?
Right now, I think the scoping is mostly commercial and office is kind of what we're looking at. Right now, I'm liaison to HARB, so I can say for the historical section, we've already in HARB talking internally about creating our own kind of document, pamphlet guide of how to come to HARB and, the basics of design and things like that. So I feel like removing that part, I feel confident it can be supplemented by something that HARB creates. And the only section I feel like only sections from the 2001 document, there is a significant chunk that is talking about community character, and it is kind of is reiterating chapter 3 of the comp plan. And then the residential section that is kind of talking about where a driveway should be in front of a residential home, or kind of reiterating some of the setback standards we have in our code, things like that.
It's in the zoning code,
Yeah.
or decided in special exception, potentially those projects.
So those sections, yeah.
Okay. A couple things, based on the discussion tonight of new concepts that you might want to include. I heard a lot about loading and delivery, so maybe we add that to the list. Bike facilities isn't mentioned here. I mean, even so my I would love to have a document like this that captures all of here's what the city wants in all of these areas in a nice, easy to page through, super brief, very navigable format, right? That's what you want to be able to hand developers, right? So it's we got to figure out what we're doing with bikes at this location. Oh, turn to page 12, and there's your little just summary, and refers them to the bicycle master plan, which is the source of more deeper information. So I like the idea of this being kind of a shorter guide to all of these topics in the city's vision, and if there are areas that we need more depth on, we have those master plans that already exist, so referring people to those. So I think from that perspective, bike facilities is definitely something that we see that we have a need for in our streetscape, and as new development happens. So I would want to have some kind of reference to it here, so I'd add that to the list. Shade is another thing that I think maybe we could consider adding, how we're providing shade for new projects, the importance of shade, and that relates to tree canopy and maybe biophilic design and other elements here. But I think it's as a concept, that could be another one that I would add to the list. And then you don't have anything on accessibility or ADA. So I don't exactly know what that looks like, but
Universal design.
universal design, yeah, could be another good topic to think about. And then outdoor dining, or just general ground floor activation, commercial areas, those kinds of concepts. I don't know how that fits in, but those are other things that I think about when I think about what do we want our streets to feel like and look like, and what does the community want? the public realm to be. So I think like if we can capture that, and I know it's a lot of different elements, but those are some things that come to mind. And like, I get why we aren't going to want to like touch maybe some more complicated issues on this old concepts. Let's just carry them over. But we really need to look at parking. I think that our approach to that has evolved and should probably evolve further. Gateways too, like, you know, I actually didn't get a chance to look at what the advice is on gateways, but we've built some gateways, and I don't know. So that would be something that I would like recommend we look at. But I understand you're trying to keep the scope small, and I've already added like 4 things to the new list. So
No, this is good, thank you.
Can I follow on to,
Sure.
Something you said just triggered a thought for me, and follow up to what Mr. Duncan had said a little bit, like the idea of intentional art, bring a reason for people to come other than
Placemaking?
yeah,
placemaking, like a reason to come other than the store is good or I live here. I
yeah, and
think
public
there's-
art could be another
Yeah.
concept.
We can have
and placemaking.
We could have our own bean or something like that.
Oh, public art. Oh, concept.
yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
But
a
it's a
long,
carryover, but,
certainly
like,
a long list.
Yeah, we'll keep adding things because
And anywhere where we can have like a brief summary of like, here's what this thing is, here's why we think it's important, and here's where you go to find the most recent guide. Because like we have plans for a lot of these things that exist, right? So it's just like if this can be a central navigation guide to like crosswalk to those other existing plans that are being updated more frequently, I think that would be really useful.
And can I add that under street furniture, similar to public art, street furniture includes bike racks and bike infrastructure.
Oh, great. Okay.
But I would agree that it's important, and maybe we'll highlight that because I'm sure people are going to be interested. And then, as you said, linking it to the master plan that explains it further.
Yeah.
It'll be a good approach.
And I guess it wouldn't really touch on like on-street facilities for bikes, or would it?
The
Like-
current plans don't, but that's one of the
I mean,
things we can
obviously
consider.
captured in the master plan, but
Mhm.
I don't know if there's a way to refer back to the bicycle master plan from that
Mm-hmm.
section. Okay. I think that was it on my list, but it's a great effort. Any other last comments, ideas?
Can we get some money and go out and get Jeff Speck to
Yes.
advise us on this?
Yeah. I've got him on speed dial. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate the presentation. Hope our feedback was helpful tonight.
Thank you. It's very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So that brings us to our information items. We're only 20 minutes behind. Any commissioner reports this evening?
Report just, well, I mean, it's not like an official commissioner report, but, and folks probably already know this, but the legislative session, concluded. The governor still has 30 days to do what she's going to do. But for example, the thing people probably already know this, the thing we were pushing for to raise the cap on population size to allow planning commission to become a designated agent, it died along party lines 8-7 in committee. So it's kind of unfortunate. None of our direct representatives were voting on that, but it did die party lines 8-7, and kind of without voting on the merits of it, they basically killed it. So doesn't mean it's dead for next year, or it could be brought up again, and hopefully people continue to fight that fight. But yeah, just so folks know, that's not going to change this session.
Okay.
Maybe people already knew that, but in case they didn't.
And just adding to that, about the legislative session, we were talking a little bit about SB 717, which is the transit-oriented housing overlay districts. So that was passed by the Senate. It went to the House. It was not passed by the House, but it was continued into 2027. So that's going to be automatically reintroduced in 2027.
All right. Thank you for the legislative update, Mr. Duncan.
In that same vein, Marcus Simon was at the chamber lunch yesterday and spoke on a number of topics, but one included the proposal that churches be able to develop housing, and that, my understanding was that did pass. I'm not sure what the details of it are, how it affects Falls Church, so I guess I would make a request to get us briefed on that at some point at a future meeting once the dust settles in Richmond.
Without getting too specific, it would allow by right churches to, if there's an affordable component, to develop housing on their properties. But there's more specific than that. You can read the bill, but yeah, the governor still has to sign it, but I hear that one will likely be signed. But I
Yeah,
don't
it
know.
would be good for us to get a briefing on that.
Yeah, do you know, and I'm asking you to interpret something that you didn't create, but do you know if that was an affordable component meant one affordable unit, or is it a percentage really?
I don't want to speak to the specifics because it was, like any piece of legislation. You can read the bill, but yeah, it's specific. There's a lot of things you need to show, but it does open it up to by right, on a property that has, on a church property. So, I just don't remember the details of exactly what the
Yeah, I'd have to go look at it. Okay.
requirements were, but that one, yeah, did pass, and I don't have any special inside line, but people would tell me that no more than me seem to think that, Spanberger's going to sign that one.
Yeah, I'd be curious to know what counts as church property. Like if a church bought a piece of land, is that now church property? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll go read the bill and get the direct information.
Matt may bring this up in his director's report, but the Virginia Village first public engagement opportunity is Saturday morning from
10 to
10 to
12.
noon.
10 o'clock.
Yeah.
Right, Jack? Okay, just put that on your calendar.
Attended the AAB meeting last week, along with the City Council Representative, Mr. Agan, and one of the things that came up from they were reviewing the housing, or the apartment condo building on Washington Street, Park in Washington. One of the comments from the developer was that they had not heard of the small area plan, or had not been informed of the small area plan until that night, and said it was a multiple $10,000 every time they reapply or resubmit.
Yeah.
And so they were moving forward, and I don't think it was a blocker, but it was one of those interesting opportunities. It might be an interesting opportunity for us in terms of how we communicate information about what are going to be requirements for the developers.
Yeah, what's on that checklist for what you need to think about?
On positive news, AAB this is the first time they've had like a full group of people in a very long time, so very excited to see them jumping in to that conversation, very active in that conversation. So
That's great.
that's great.
All right, anybody else? No? Okay, I think that brings us to the director's report. Mr. Matusek, anything for us tonight?
Yeah, I'm mainly going to focus on the upcoming calendar. We do have several public meetings scheduled for Virginia Village. I think Jack was able to send that information around. We have a session this Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon at Oak Elementary. That same conversation and format is going to be repeated the following Tuesday night at Columbia Baptist, I believe from 7 to 9. And that's really intended to kind of help us reaffirm a lot of guidance we already captured in previous small area plans for Virginia Village. So we're not starting anything from scratch. I don't think we're really deviating that far from what I think the expectations are. But given where we are, that we've acquired several lots, that there's a higher emphasis on affordable housing, it just felt timely to kind of circle back and make sure we're all on the same page. So we feel a lot of that feedback will be very helpful, and we're going to come back in April and do another Saturday morning, Tuesday evening session to kind of synthesize what we've heard and make sure we're all on the same page in terms of what we want to then memorialize and document in these documents, and perhaps even take it further into code changes later in the year / summer. So that's going to be 4 meetings coming up, open to the public, and we look forward to seeing folks have a good conversation with us and see where that takes us. That information will come back to various commissions. We're kind of closely working with opportunities for joint work sessions, kind of with our partners in the Housing Commission, Economic Development Authority. At some point, we may even reach out to the Urban Forestry Commission, and there's a lot of different topics that this one little site kind of triggers. So we want to make sure everybody has a voice, has a chance to inform this before we get into any kind of development conversations. So we'll be looking at potentially something in May, by which point those conversations have happened, and intentionally try to schedule a return to this group prior to any kind of major updates to the council, which we are anticipating for late May. So I think May might be a healthy opportunity, by which point staff would have had some analysis prepared, and we kind of know what the next steps are. Maybe some additional dates might be identified by that point. So we're looking at when that best date might be, and I feel like May might also be a good time to provide a potential update on where some of these bills from Richmond actually ended up, based on when I think the governor is going to have to vote on them, and what actually might become reality. So I think having a conversation in April might be a little bit too premature. We'd rather just wait, see how the veto process goes and what actually makes its way through the final cuts. And we'll see who else may want to join us for that conversation. And it may become something we just do every May, since there's just so many things potentially getting out of those conversations we have to start anticipating annually. And I think beyond that, as you look into like early summer, we have some additional comp plan meetings on Chapter 5, and I think Virginia Village will continue to come back up almost every month through July. So those calendar dates will fill up, but I don't know if March or April, I should say. There may only be one meeting, I think, for that month right now, based on the agenda topics.
Well, April 1st, I think we canceled
Correct.
previously because it's spring break. So we just have the 15th. We're required to meet once a month, but yeah, you have an item for that. The Oak Park Sewer Easement Agreement? Is there any
I think that one required a slight shift, and because of the details of that shift, they're required to kind of revisit some of the bodies that were involved in the initial approval, so it's a very
subdivision.
technical,
Okay.
yeah.
Look forward to it.
No,
Just
you
to-
don't.
Just to remind, I'm here May 6th, but I won't be here on the 20th. It's my anniversary, but Mr. Stevens can very ably lead us, I think, that evening.
Looks like no meeting that night.
Well, not yet, but it sounds like Virginia Village is going to be coming back either the 6th or the 20th. Is that what I'm hearing?
And I think at this point, we're
Somewhere.
flexible, so if one of those is better for the commission.
I guess it depends on how much time where staff is on the analysis and the feedback from the community and
Yeah.
getting through all of that, because
Yeah, let us reach out maybe to the Housing Commission and see if the 6th works, and then we can maybe try to pin that
Okay.
down.
all right, sounds good.
That's fine, I'm here.
Okay, or the 20th with Tim.
Okay.
All right.
One other thing, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Those of you still subscribe to the Washington Post, there's a very interesting article today on the affordable housing debate in Princeton, New Jersey.
Oh, yeah.
If you've seen it, yeah, okay. Everybody here is very well read. It's uncanny, some of the similarities. Very high income, very high educated demographic, wrestling with the issue just like we are. Anyway, it's worth a read.
Thanks for the rec. All right. Anything else on the director's report? Is that it?
This is more like a 3-month forecast, but I know we discussed some additional guidance from our city attorney regarding the approval authority issue as it relates to site plans. Staff is working with that office and our partners in zoning, and we believe by early June, I think we should have some framework of a proposal and process in place to probably start circulating some information on what that looks like, how it all comes together, partly from a code change perspective, but also just in terms of operationalizing it in this still 40-day process we have to continue to follow for now. So a lot of different moving pieces. It'll remain painful. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, but I'm sure there's a way to do it, and just be mindful of the applicants and their process and
Yeah.
what they're going to have to go through.
Yeah, especially for smaller developers like
Exactly.
Danny was saying.
Yep. So that's everything from me.
Thank you. Okay, and then I guess everybody check out the flyer in our correspondence that includes the dates, times, and locations for the Virginia Village community meetings. I encourage you all to go. And with that, I think we are adjourned. Thanks.